these boots. So,
So, journalist.
So I want to ask you some questions.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. So, what did you think when you very, very first read the script? Can you remember?
Yeah. Because I met Darren, he came backstage at the show, and John had already, John had already worded, he says, you know, he's got the fountain and it fell through and it's a great project and you know, so he had Darren come back and Darren was like, I love the show, great. And I was very shocked, that he was there, seemed very incongruous that Darren Aronofsky was at The Boy from Oz.
At a musical.
And loving it. Really, he really enjoyed it. I could tell he really liked it. And I said, you go to musical? Anyway, give me a very long answer. Anyway,
he loves musicals.
Loves it, and I was shocked. Yeah. And then he goes, I said to him, so what do you do next? He goes, I don't know, you know. I said, working on getting a movie up and stuff. I said, yeah, I heard about it. I'd love to read it. Could I read it? Yeah. And he goes, I don't know. No, I don't really do that sort of thing. And I was like,
really?
Okay. I kind of thought, oops, overstepped the mark. No, he kind of was just very shy and sheepish all of a sudden. I felt like I've been a real pushy actor here all of a sudden. And anyway, he rang me the next day and he said, do you really want to read it? He rang me on. So anyway, do you really want to read it? This is how I remember. And I said, yeah. So I got it and I read it after the show one night. So I get home about 11 and I read it straight through till about 1 in the morning. And I just had this, my main feeling of it, apart from being a little confused plot-wise, was I had this feeling of hope. Like just felt very light. I couldn't put it down literally, which is unusual for me. Usually, you know, tired, and I was like, well, no, I'm just tired. I'm reading at 11 o'clock at night, and I usually maybe get 20 minutes into something, and so I read it straight through, which is always a good sign. And then I just had this beautiful. I thought there's some message in here that really connects to me, and there were little bits in the script that I really connected with, and things I believed in, and. And I rang Darren the next morning and I said, man, look, I don't want to be presumptuous in that you're going to ask me to do it or anything, but I'll let you know that if you would want me to do it, I'll commit to it now. And I think, actually, I remember saying that and then thinking, shit, I should probably tell my agent I've even kind of read it, you know, before committing to it. Because he was, that was the issue. He was like, when you finish the show? And I said, that's right. And I said, September. He goes, I'm thinking of going in July. And, you know, I've waited years to do it, so.
And also you needed to have some time off after the show.
Yeah, and we ended up having, I think, at least a couple of months.
Yeah.
So, and that was it. It happened so fast. And I just said to him, look, I'll guarantee you in writing that this is the thing I'll do afterwards, because it was like January. So it was 11 months away for Darren.
Right.
Which is, he'd already waited years.
Right.
But that was the first thing I remember. I felt like it was somehow, and I'd funnily enough been reading Joseph Campbell, and I felt like it was like a myth, like a modern day myth, that you don't necessarily, I couldn't necessarily disseminate the entire themes, etc. of the piece, but it just connected with me. It made sense. I felt like, yeah, this is what life's about. I think I really connected with the fear of death and actually fully dealing with death before you can live. And the quote at the beginning from Genesis, which is something I'd kind of looked at before and always been very interested in, and that whole notion of duality and how our life on earth is going, much of our life has been getting away from the Garden of Eden, and that our embodiment here, human embodiment, is about getting back to the Garden of Eden. So the movie starting with that quote, I was like, whoa, this is sort of weird. And then there's some hazy bits in the middle, but that was my first reaction. I'm very kind of exhausted right now.
You must be.
In every way, but very satisfied at the same time,
Yeah.
which is kind of a thrilling feeling.
Do you think you've ever been pushed as hard as...
No way, I've never been pushed this hard.
No.
No. And
he's very unusual.
what about you? Do you?
I've never been remotely pushed this far.
No.
I've been, I've definitely been pushed by people who push you in a way that makes you feel bad about yourself and shuts you down. That's happened, but I've never been pushed by somebody who is holding you and making you feel completely safe, but pushes you to the point where you think you're going to actually lose your mind because you can't go any further. But
yeah, no, though I went places in this film. I've watched actors and heard actors talk about, I went into a space during that film, and so I was like, did you really, or are you just sort of romanticising this whole thing and you know,
being actor studio about it? Yeah.
I was like,
have you done that, by the way?
Yeah. Have you?
No.
It's 4.5 hours.
Is it?
But
you did. But on this, you felt.
Yeah. At times, I felt really. I was also away from my family.
Yeah. Which
was kind of deliberate choice for this movie, not only lifestyle-wise, but it kind of thought, well, this is a movie I think that's going to be challenging, and it's probably better that I just.
He's going on such a solo quest, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's such a loner.
It felt very sort of inward and.
It must have been lovely that you could be with your family at the weekends.
Oh, it was amazing. And that time of Christmas was just... It was interesting because all the stuff and the vulnerability and the openness that Darren demanded, which is kind of frightening. I was frightened of it before the film.
Well, I think particularly for men, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's frightening for all actors and all people, but men aren't taught how to be that vulnerable.
No, even to the point where I think about watching the film, I'm like, I'm going to be maybe a little uncomfortable.
Sure.
I said that to Deb. I went back one weekend. I said, Deb, it's going to sound weird, but I might have cried like this once in front of you. I can't really remember, but there was a feeling of privacy and that Darren allowed, and intimacy that was. You kind of just did it, and then sometimes I'd wake up next morning and go, whoa, did I do that? You know, like after a big night out, what did I say? What did I do?
But I think that's sort of when film or all acting becomes really interesting, is when people really behave how they behave in private, either by themselves or very, very privately with their lover, or just it's the most private things that you can do. And sometimes it's very hard to do, and it's the aim, I think, in acting, but it's very hard to do. There's a whole crew there, and
completely.
You know, it's scary, but
this
somehow
crew was pretty extraordinary
this
too.
Crew was extraordinary. I felt they supported us in. Like when Darren got the Yumi and Nico and Francois, we all did it three arms.
That's
we
right.
all sound like crazy hippies now, but
they were into it.
They were totally into it. Yeah.
And you know, I said this to you privately, and I'll say it for everyone at MTV. You got great hair. No, I couldn't have done it without you, because there was an intimacy of the relationship which allowed us to go beyond all the camera, film, everything to create a genuine connection, you know, which was such a gift.
Yeah, no, it was incredible.
Yeah. I remember Trevor always saying, he says, you got to look for the parts that are challenging but demand everything of yourself. And no, he says, when the demands of the part and your potential meet, then you're onto something. And that, I think, for both of us, is probably this film, because there were demands playing different roles and characters, and also connections that it was just an opportunity I've never had before.
If you were going to describe the story, what would you...
Like the plot? Or what it's about?
Or what it's about to you? Not so much the plot, like what...
Yeah. They ate from the tree of knowledge, of good and evil. And they were banned from the garden, and he hid the tree of life. And
it really says that in the Bible.
Yeah, it really says that. Right. So, what I see that is that, well, the tree of knowledge of good and evil is pretty much how we live our life every day. There's you, me,
actor, actress, boy, girl,
dualities,
journalist, interviewee,
evil, good.
Yeah, my career's doing well, badly.
Yeah.
I'm in love, I'm not in love.
Yeah.
I'm living, I'm dying. All that stuff, which pretty much infects almost every moment. And underneath that is the truth, which is the tree of life, which is unity, which is the Garden of Eden. That, in fact, there is no separation. So the experience not only of reading the story, of acting the story, but being in the film are those moments of connection. And it doesn't necessarily last all the time, but like you were saying, as an actor-actress, there was a heart connection, but in truth, there was just one.
Yeah.
And it probably didn't happen all the time, but there were moments of that. Same with Darren or the group here. And so that, for me, is what the movie's about. That...
Which is definitely a breakdown of ego.
Of course. Surrender. That's surrender.
Yeah.
It's. I don't know if I would say that in the press junket. That's what I thought. I'd probably say something about it.
Love
Maybe
story.
It's a love story.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
Until you can accept dying, then you can't fully live, which are all pretty much the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you're quiet, when the mind is quiet, you can feel that sense of expansion, and everything in the movie seems to be going from dark to light, from that feeling of closed, even my character Tommy, closed and to expand, about expansion. And by surrendering all our ideas of how we should do things and what's right and wrong, what I deserve, what my wife should give to me, what me, all of that. By surrendering all that, there's actually an expansion and a feeling of letting go that happens at the end of the movie. In a weird way, as tired as I am, that's part of the surrender too. That's, I think, why Darren pushes me and you and other actors so hard, because at some point you have to just let go and go for the ride and just enjoy it. And I suppose that's been the experience of the film for me.
And you just always connect immediately with whoever's talking to you, whatever moment, whatever you're going through, and it's such a beautiful quality. Yeah, and I suppose...
Get the fucking camera out.
We've gone metaphysical hippie.
Yeah, very.
Like, this is what Arafonsky does to you. We get,
it's true.
We're just hippied out here, man.
This is a much better interview. Metaphysical Monthly. It's been terrific.
Metaphysical Monthly.